Well, hi, this is Mike Zintera, and this is my final reflection for EDCI 633. Um, yeah, I'm looking forward to unpacking some of the things that I've learned throughout this course, and yeah, excited to share that with you. So let's start off with an updated graphic representation of instructional design and project management and how those two things fit together. My previous image or my original image looked a little bit like this. It was my take on kind of the layering that happens in iMovie, um, and kind of trying to show that in regards to instructional design and project management. Now, what I noticed is that while this is super intuitive to me as I work with iMovie regularly, for someone who doesn't work with iMovie as regularly, I could see how this would be an interesting or maybe even a little bit of a confusing design. And so I wanted to aim for something that was a little bit more intuitive and felt less like separate lanes. The other thing that I noticed was that the additional elements, maybe some of the soft skills and strategies, got lost a little bit and maybe overpowered by some of the chronological frameworks that I was comparing in the project management and instructional design lanes. So with that in mind, I actually chose to take something from that last image. I had gotten in the discussion, I had used the analogy of a chef and how they're able to bring together the different ingredients that are available to them to create a dish and make them sing together. And essentially, I chose to make that my image and use that analogy this time. And so, a couple of things about a chef. They have foundational understanding of multiple frameworks of how to cook. So, whether it's different types of cuisine or how different flavors fit together, they understand kind of those foundational theories. And in the same way, an instructional designer uh, and a project manager, they have to know basic principles and models within the field in order for them to have a successful project. Chefs also have to have the technical skills of cooking, whether that's knife skills or particular cooking techniques, maybe even the science of cooking. The equivalent in the IDPM world would be organizational skills, planning, and project control. The other thing that chefs have is soft skills. Chefs do more than just the cooking themselves. They actually have to communicate with their staff and run their staff well. And often that means communicating well, navigating conflict well. And in the same way, instructional designers and project managers, they have to do the same thing with those that they're leading. Chefs also want to, or they know what they want the taste, smell, and sight of a particular dish to be. When they're creating it, they have a vision in mind. And the same thing needs to be true in instructional design and project management. They're able to adapt their skill set to succeed with specific project variables. So, for example, a chef may go to a local market like this and see what are the ingredients available today. Then they're able to use the foundational knowledge that they have and knowing their technical skills and what they have with their staff. They're able to bring those things together to make a successful and profitable dish for their restaurant. In the same way, a project manager has to be able to look at the things that are available to them, whether that's the team, the audience, the culture, the technology, expectations, budget, timeline, objectives. They have to take all of those things into consideration when they are crafting their dish of the day. And so that's one of the things that that's kind of the way that I would bring together the idea of a chef and instructional design and project management. That's kind of how I see those two worlds colliding. A little less focused on some of the major frameworks and a little more focused on um, kind of the holistic experience of being a project manager and an instructional designer. Now I want to move to considering past and future instructional design project work. So as I think back to some of the projects that I've done, um, I think I've had a variety of project experiences. Some of them, when I'm thinking about group projects, some of them have been good, some of them have been less good, and that's true even within this course. I think some of the casework that I did with teams has been really, really helpful, and others have been more challenging. And maybe that's because of the tight timeline or just a lack of clarity on the team. I think there's a lot of things that you could actually think about, but in particular, I think the biggest thing is, are expectations clear? When I think even outside of this class, and I think of, do I know what's expected to me of me and what I can expect from those around me? Those are often when I am at my best, or when I feel like the project goes its best, is when the expectations are clear. The other thing that I've noticed is that the manager really matters. And actually, there's a book that I really enjoy. It's called It's the Manager by Gallup, that basically says that stakeholder involvement, or like employee engagement, the thing that matters the most is the manager. And the three things that they say, that they really emphasize help a manager succeed is, does the manager express that they care about me? Are their expectations clear of me? And am I getting regular feedback? If those three things are true, employee engagement tends to rise in a rapid way. And when employee engagement goes up, so does productivity. Um, and so for me, I tend to really, I resonate with that. I think that's been true. And I think that's honestly what happened even within this course. The times where I was working with a group and we knew what the expectation was, it went really well. In the smaller discussion groups, it was really rough. And so, yeah, I'm noticing the expectations, and is it about the task, or is it about more than the task? Um, Essentially, people matter. And so that actually feeds right into attributes that I admire in leaders. First is they care about the being first. Um, I think, yeah, I mean, I've already said this a little bit, but for me, caring about the being first suggests that the people, the person or the people are more important than the project itself. Do they care about me personally more than they care about this task? Because honestly, I'm going to perform way better if they care about me first. The second thing is, do they cast vision well? Do they have a vision for the future, and can they share it with me in a compelling way, in a way that gets me excited to do something different than I've already been doing? The third thing is clear expectations and feedback. So again, that's, these sound a lot like it's the manager points. I think like I said, I resonate deeply with that. In particular, feedback that is received and given in the culture that I am comfortable with. So that the receiving person is comfortable with. So for me, I tend to prefer more direct feedback. But I know when I've been supervising people that take more indirect feedback, I've adjusted my leadership to fit their expectations and their way of receiving feedback. And then the last thing that I'll say is adaptive capacity developed by technical competence. So this comes out of the book Canoeing the Mountains, which is one of my favorite books on change leadership. So this book talks about specifically Christian leadership. That's the realm I'm in. And it talks about how right now the church is not designed, the way we've been training pastors and church leaders is not designed for really the culture that we're in. And so some significant change needs to happen. And it uses the analogy of Lewis and Clark, and how when they hit the Rocky Mountains, they had a choice. They could either try to canoe up the mountains, or they could set their canoes aside and lead differently. And I think the thing that made Lewis and Clark successful, at least according to this author, is they had proved their technical competence on the map, so that when they went off the map, the people that were following them trusted them. And I think that's something that I really admire in the leaders that I follow. So for me as a group leader, my personal leadership strategies, these are going to sound familiar. People first, projects second. We saw this in my interview with my dad. That's something that I've learned a long time ago. And I think honestly, it's something that comes from my beliefs as a Christian as well. I always want to start with the people first. And the reality is, if you demonstrate your care for them, it'll be a better experience for everyone. This was true even in our team calls for the group projects this course. As the project leader, I made sure that we set aside time at the beginning of every call to just check in and say, hey, how's everybody doing? How are we navigating COVID-19? How are we navigating living with our kids 24/7? How are we navigating the loss of a classroom that we're teaching in? And I think that made a huge difference in our team experience. The second thing is I love Simon Sinek's start with why. You have to start with why and cast a vision powerfully. You have to explain to people why here is no good and why there is way better. And then once that's explained, once you get the why, then you can move into the how and the what. And then the third point is gather input and adapt. I think along the way, as you see what's unfolding, the ability to foster creativity and being adaptable is something that's really crucial, especially considering how rapidly the world can change, as we've experienced even in the duration of this course. As we think back 2 months ago where our world was, and then where we think of it today, the ability to adapt and change in creative ways is something that I see essential in the midst of project management. So some things that I've learned. First thing is I shouldn't underestimate myself. I shouldn't be intimidated when it comes to the world of project management. Now, some of the things that we've learned in this course, I've actually been doing, it's just been intuitive or learned by experience, not by the book. And so that has been really affirming to me that I shouldn't underestimate myself and I shouldn't be intimidated in this world. The second thing is that scope really matters. For me, one of the things that was really highlighted was the importance of project control and how do we how do we do project control effectively and in a way that allows a project to unfold successfully. As I think about future projects, I would say that um, I am eager to learn and eager to dive into some of the relevant technical skills on a particular topic. I still feel like that's a little bit of a flat side. I can learn technology quickly, so I feel confident in that. But I don't know some of the technical skills or even terms. And so that's something that is really important to me that I want to keep learning about. And I'm excited to practice in a real scenario. Um, Cases are great for practice and learning, but at some point I want to hit the ground running and try and maybe even fail a little bit and see what I can learn from that. And so those are some things that I definitely want to learn moving forward. And then the next thing is as I look to the future, again, I can lead people from here to there. I've done it before and I'm confident that I can do it again. I think I want to continue to grow, as I've said, in my technical skills and project management terminology. Getting some experience with some project management tools was really helpful and fun. Um, Now I've got to decide if those are things that I want to adapt or if I want to try different ones. But just getting the nudge to try those was really significant for me. And then the last thing that I'll note here is I want to adjust particularly my written communication. I think I can come across as pretty self-assured and confident, particularly when I write things. And so if people don't have the ability to have a conversation with me, I want to make sure that I can communicate people first, even in the midst of my written communication. Um, I tend to come across in a strong way, and so I want to just make sure that people receive me well and that I can earn their trust, even in written communication. So to kind of wrap things up, two key takeaways for me. The first is people are the heart of any project. We heard it from our guest speaker. We heard it in a number of the project management investigation projects. And honestly, it showed up in the cases also. The reality is people are the heart. And so if we can really learn how to connect with people well, how to communicate, how to set expectations clearly, I think that goes a long way in the terms of in the way of project management. And then my second key takeaway is that clarity of expectations and visions really go a long way. They are vital when it comes to a successful project. Knowing what the goal is and how we're going to get there, both as a team, but also individual parts of that team, is really significant. And so communicating that on the front end of a project and revisiting it throughout the project is something that I think is just really, really important as well. So yeah, thank you so much for listening to some of the things that I've learned this semester. I'm grateful for this course and kind of the nudge into the project management world that it's given me. I think this is something I could see myself doing for a long time. So thank you very much.